Thank you, Chris. I'm sort of a bit dishevelled. I've no time to go and get changed. I've been on a train all day. I want to thank everybody, Gemma, everybody concerned today for this opportunity to come. Thank you, Matthew, for the kind introduction. And thanks to Chris, who's... we were on two different trains today. I was coming from Glasgow and he was coming from North Wales. And I think he's an incredible man, and I'm so glad to know him. And I'll just say as well, my dear friend Dr. Shibley's here, who's done a lot of work on, has a great book, Living Well with Dementia, and is writing his second and third book at the moment. So if anybody wants to have a chat, they're dear friends of mine, and they inspire me every day. My name's Tommy Whitelaw, and I'll be speaking about a very personal experience. And I know by speaking about that people in this room will have or have had a personal experience. And if anybody's uncomfortable with that and needs someone to chat to, there's Gemma and other people here who will happily have a chat with them. Or if they feel they want to leave the room for a minute, I'm absolutely fine with that. I can't sit and listen to anybody else speaking about dementia, so I understand that. I was a full-time carer for my kind, beautiful, magnificent mum, Joan. My mum passed away on the 22nd of the 9th, 2012, and my mum had vascular dementia. And I cared for my mum at home from 2007 until my mum passed away. I came back to visit my mum in 2007, not because of dementia or to become a carer. I was coming back for my own reasons. For the 20 years previous to that, I worked in music and I travelled pretty much 10, 11 months of the year. And I was becoming a bit burnt out and a bit disillusioned and making quite a few mistakes. And I think they go hand in hand. When you're burnt out and you're disillusioned, always equals a mistake. And that was one of the reasons I was coming back to Glasgow to visit my mum. The other was the same reason I think that most sons or daughters go back to their mum or dad if they're there. My relationship had broken down, or I had been dumped or chucked, or whatever the description is. But that's the first place you go. No matter how young or old you may be, you go back to your mum or dad if they're there, because they make it better. They take time to listen, and they help you understand the path that you may have stumbled from. That's what our mums and dads do for us. And that's what I was doing in 2007, for my mum to do what she'd done so many times before, to put her arms around me and make it better. But before coming back and from a distance, some people had been in touch, some neighbours and family members and some friends, to say in their own words that they were becoming concerned about my mum or my mum's behaviour. That was their description. But I just thought my mum was getting a wee bit older and maybe not going to some of the places she used to go to or doing some of the things she used to do. But in coming back, things had changed. And they were going to change continually and consistently for the next 5.5 years. And when I first came back, it was still for me. I thought I'll take 3 or 4 months off. I'll go back to Glasgow and find out if I want to keep doing the job I'm doing, or if I want to stay at home, or figure out why I was making so many mistakes in my own life. But it was still for me. And I thought I'll find out what these concerns are, and I'll put some things in place and keep a better eye on my mum, even from a distance. When I go back to work, I'll try and keep a better eye. But 3 months became 6 months, became 9 months, and then a year. Within that year, my mum was diagnosed with vascular dementia. A very lonely diagnosis that set the theme and the standard for what lay ahead. In amongst neither of us quite understanding what was happening within or around or beside us, or becoming quite isolated from the lives that we both once knew. And quite a fight to get my mum into hospital. It took other health issues actually to get my mum into hospital to find out what was wrong. And after 10 days, when my mum was being discharged, someone sat us down very briefly and said, "Joan, you have dementia and someone will be in touch." But no one was ever really in touch, and that set us on the path that we continued for 5 years. And in amongst that first year of finding my mum writing her name on her arm to remind her who she was. Finding scraps of paper in her pocket and under her pillow with my name on it to remind her who the other person in her own home was. And a fear that was a constant in my mum's eyes. I had no clue what it was then because I was scared myself. But a fear in my mum's eyes of what was happening within her and beside her. And people who used to phone didn't phone so often. People who used to pop in for a cup of tea didn't pop in for a cup of tea anymore. And at the end of that year, one night, when my mum was going to bed quite late, she grabbed my arm very tightly and told me for the first time how scared she was. And asked me in her own words to please don't put me into a care home. And I tried to make my mum a promise that night. A promise that's made to us by governments, by health boards, by trusts, by local authorities, by the communities that we live in, that to be cared for in our own homes for as long as possible is the best place to be cared for. And if I was married with 3 children in different circumstances, my answer may have been different. But it was only a year before that I came back from my mum to help me because I had lost my way. And I didn't want to walk away from my mum the first time in her life that she asked me to help her. And I tried to make my mum a promise that night that I would care for her, or if I couldn't, I would get her the best care possible. But after the second and the third year, as dementia was doing everything in its power to affect my mum's greatness, never in my eyes or my heart, but absolutely to affect her greatness, to affect her being recognised as Joan Whitelaw, too often at appointments and other situations described as, oh, that's the wee woman with dementia, or the wee woman over there has dementia. But that wee woman had a name and a life and a love story within her and standing right beside her. And becoming isolated from a community that my mum was born in, grew up in, went to school in, got her first job in, fell in love in, got married in and brought her children up in. There was 2 people in our house lost, scared and falling apart. And for the last of that third year, I got up every day thinking, if we can make it through today, if I can keep my mum safe and we can make it to bedtime tonight, then we have a chance of making it through tomorrow. But when I look back today with a clearer head, that's not living. In fact, it's so far away from living that it hurts to even think about it. And I got up one day and couldn't do it. I was 47. And I couldn't do it. We were never going to see tomorrow or reach it or experience it or feel it or know what it felt like to enjoy it. We were both absolutely on our knees. And I took my mum by her hand that day to go to a social work department in a health centre. And I cried the whole way there on the bus holding my mum's hand. And I cried walking from the bus to the health centre and cried walking through the front doors. And got to the reception and asked if someone could please get my mum the help she needed, deserved, and we had promised. But I was told you can't just walk in here, you have to make an appointment. If you look behind you, all those people had the courtesy and the decency to make an appointment before they came today. And I asked her again if she could please help us. I was then handed a post-it sticker with an 0800 number on it and told if I really needed help we should go home and call this number and make an appointment to see someone. And we walked out there that day with less chance, less hope, less belief, less understanding and less kindness than we walked in. And that's not why we build them. That's not why good people like the people in this room get up every day to work in them. We build them to give people opportunities and be understanding, and I hope at every occasion wrap it up with kindness, at every occasion. And on the way home, all that was in my head was people were staring at us on the bus, on the way there because I was sitting crying, and people were looking at us walking down the street because they could see two people who were struggling. And the people in that waiting room, the way that you're sitting here today, could see two people who desperately needed help, yet we were sent away. And I got home that night and got my mum settled down and into bed and sat down in her sitting room in absolute despair. And I knew the next thing would be that my mum would be put into care. Not because it's person-centred or we were a part of the discussion or it was the best thing designed and the best for Joan Whitelaw, but because as a family we had fallen and crumbled and fallen apart. And I didn't want that to be the end of my mum's hard-working, remarkable life and love story. I didn't want it to be the end of a promise that 4 years before it I told her I would care for her. I just wanted to be a good son. I just wanted to be a good carer. I wanted to get my mum the help she needed. But I really didn't know where to go that night. And one of the things I started doing was writing a little blog. And I felt better. I didn't feel judged, and at night when my mum went to bed I would put on the things that we smiled at or cried at or succeeded at or failed at, or the things we understood or the things we didn't quite understand. And it took away some of the loneliness that I felt inside, and I didn't feel judged or rejected. It became a good friend, and it introduced me to some of the people that are in this room with us today, and it really, really helped. And on my blog I made a promise that if I could get a week's respite, that in 7 or 8 months' time I would take a week's respite and walk around Scotland for a week and ask people to write to me and share their experiences, good or bad, of when someone they loved was diagnosed with dementia. And if people wrote to me, I would walk straight to the Scottish Parliament and ask them to read them. Not as a protest or as a petition, but absolutely as a cry for help. And I thought maybe somebody will write a letter and show me how to do this. Maybe I'll open one of those letters that will show me how to be a better son or get my mum the care that she deserves. And people wrote to me in their hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and now by the thousands, from Scotland, from England, from Wales, from North America, from Australia, by letter, by email, on my blog, even knocking on my door to hand me it in person. And every single letter that I've received has the word love. The word love appears in every single letter, or it's about love. It's a love story. But the word love is outmatched and outnumbered by the word loneliness. The word loneliness appears more often in the letters, and the words isolation appear more often. And the words understanding, I don't understand what's happening to me, or we don't understand what's happening to us. Or quite often people, and the people that we meet with really good intentions, don't seem to understand who we are, how we live, how we feel. In a little minute I'm going to show a very short film about that walk, and you'll meet some incredible husbands and wives. 2 of them met at school and get married. They met at 14 and they fell in love and they get married. And like everybody in this room, looked forward to a day where they would sit with their loved ones and look back at the memories and the things they smiled at or cried at, or the holidays they went, or the lives that they led. This is a film about impact. If we don't understand, if we don't help people understand, if we don't play our part, I think it's about love. You might not agree with every word in it, but I know it's about love because I met the people who you're going to hear from. That part of my campaign, which is ongoing, is called Letters, Life and Love Stories, and it's still ongoing. My campaign for this year is called You Can Make a Difference. I started in the middle of last year. This is talk 195, up and down the country. And I'm asking people to think when they watch this film or after this talk of what one little thing could you do in your workplace and your community, to your own family, or to the people that you meet, or the people you sit facing at your desk every day. Could you make a difference? And that comes from people. It's always people. Over above policies and strategies and initiatives and booklets and flyers like I'm handing out today, it's always people that make the biggest difference of all. Within the letters, you read it and you think, I am so glad you met that nurse. I'm so glad it was that person who knocked on your door or sat by your bedside or you spoke to on the phone. But it's also people within the letters that make them the most dreadful letter to read. And you think, why did it have to be that nurse? Or that social worker, or that person on the phone? Sometimes I read them and think, if I could take the nurse from this letter and put her in that letter, that would be such a better story. And that's the campaign that I'm on just now. And I'm going to tell you after I show this film about a district nurse who put her hand on my shoulder and made my mum's life better. And I'm so glad that I met her. And I'm going to tell you about a consultant who changed the lives of a family who wrote to me. And I hope when I'm describing them, it's actually you that I'm describing. I hope when I speak about that district nurse, that that's the nurse that you are. That's the person that you are, or the doctor, or the part of the finance team, or the communications team. That's the part that you play with the people you work with. But this, with the help of Helen, I believe, I'm going to show a very short film about my mum. Celtic Park. This stadium has seen some great action over the years, but it's changed in size and structure too. Back in the old days, well over 100,000 people would cram in here to see their football team. Nowadays, this stadium has a capacity for 60,832 people. If we were to host an event and invite every single person in Scotland who has Alzheimer's, we would still have a queue out the door. We would need another stadium. So here we are in Fir Park in Motherwell, a capacity of 13,700. So maybe if our estimates are correct, we can now get everyone with Alzheimer's in Scotland into the ground. That's about 82,000 people that we know about. But what about the carers and their families? Stadium holds 51,000 people, not even enough to have a carer each. Here we are at Scotland's National Stadium, Hampden Park. It seats 52,000 people, but we still wouldn't have enough space to accommodate all the people affected by Alzheimer's in Scotland today. My name is Tommy Whitelaw. I'm a full-time carer for my mum Joan, and I have been for the last 4 years. She has dementia. My previous life, just like my mum's, is all but forgotten due to this cruel and all-encompassing condition. Dementia affects more than 82,000 individuals across Scotland every year, and countless more family members. In 2011, I decided to undertake a walk. I wanted to go out and meet people who share the same experiences of caring for someone with dementia like I have. I visited workplaces, football teams, and met with politicians. But most of all, I collected letters and emails from people who are caring just like me. So many people have shared their experiences with me of what life is like living with and caring for someone with dementia. The letters I collected have inspired me, and I hope they will help you understand the massive impact that dementia has across our whole society.
I look after my husband, the husband I've lost. I've done the grieving for him, and I'll never get him back. I've lost the future I was hoping for, It's not really your husband anymore. When I looked at the future ahead of me, I think, just forget it. To get through, you just have to deal with one day at a time. I feel very lonely and isolated with no one to talk to most of the time.
Before Ian took dementia about 4 years ago, we used to talk about the things we would do when he retired. But sadly, we never got to do anything. I am the mother figure and Ian is the child instead of being husband and wife. It took me a while to realise that I was a carer, as I felt that it was my duty, but I am a carer.
I looked after my wife for the last 7.5 years. The worst thing I hated is when I woke up in the morning and my wife asked me who I was. I told her I was a man. She says, "No, you're my brother. What are you doing in my bed? Are we married?" "Yes." I got this every morning and it was heartbreaking. I had my retirement plans, but when my wife got dementia, my world collapsed about me. And finally the doctor told me that my wife had to go into a home, which broke my heart.
Being a carer for such a long time had a massive impact on my life. The need for informal carers will not disappear, and most people want to do it when it comes their way. But I believe that the strain on carers is unknown and largely ignored. The cost of paying for informal carers would be enormous, and I understand that it would be an unbearable strain on resources. But some thought has to go into supporting willing carers to prevent them from having a physical or mental health illness because of their input.